Throughout time and space, there is a legend of a man who appears when disaster is near. A mysterious, enigmatic figure who always shows up just in time to set things right and then disappears. A man gifted with the power to regenerate, renew, and restore his body if ever his mortality is threatened. But as the story goes, his regenerations were limited, and there were a fixed number of times that he could do it, with his 11th incarnation being the last. But after hundreds of years of fighting monsters, protecting planets, and saving the universe, it was about time the universe saved him, and thus there would be a 12th. Greetings fanboys and fangirls, I'm Erod and I'm the Blockbuster Buster, and I am so sorry that it took me so long to release this video. But with Doctor Who celebrating its 60th anniversary, I can't think of a better time to revisit the franchise. But first, let's do what this show does best and go back in time to 10 years ago, to the time of the 50th anniversary. This was during Matt Smith's era as the Doctor, when the series reached the apex of its popularity. And Doctor Who was everywhere, and rumors about the 50th anniversary special were running rampant. And smack dab in the middle of this maelstrom of excitement came the news that shocked the new fans, but the old school fans had been expecting all year long. That Matt Smith was stepping down as the Doctor. And the BBC even aired a special broadcast just to reveal the identity of the next actor playing the beloved Time Lord. So we all watched and waited, and finally at the end of the broadcast, the next Doctor emerged, and most of us said, "Oh my god, it's that foul-mouthed guy from In the Thick of It." And hasn't he been on Doctor Who already?
Business is closed for the day. I'm expecting a visitor.
Well, that's me. I'm a visitor. Hello.
Yes, Peter Capaldi, the Oscar-winning director, I'm not kidding, and character actor was going to be the 12th Doctor. And boy did he enter the Whoniverse correctly. And thus, the speculation began. As we learned that Capaldi was leaving the Musketeers, where he was playing the main villain, Cardinal Richelieu, to work on Doctor Who full-time. Soon thereafter, we got our first glimpse of the 12th Doctor's costume, which got the usual reaction from the fanbase.
I don't like it.
And then a few months later,
You get used to it.
nah. Personally, I've always liked the 12th Doctor's look. It's simple yet unique, and I find it bold that they ditched the neckwear, as that was one of Matt Smith's greatest trademarks.
Bow ties are cool.
Fun fact, the costume is actually based on David Bowie's look from 1976, which he most prominently sported on the cover of his album Station to Station, and in the sci-fi movie The Man Who Fell to Earth. And honestly, it couldn't have been more appropriate that the 12th Doctor's look was inspired by a rock star. But I'm getting ahead of myself.
What happened to your coat? The velvety one, I like that one. It was very doctory.
Then came the news that the 12th Doctor's first adventure would air in 2014. But little did we know that we'd get a little taste of the 12th long before that.
12 of them. No, sir. Ah! All 13!
Excitement about the 12th Doctor ignited yet again, right as we learned that Matt Smith's final adventure as the Doctor would come on Christmas 2013. And thus, we were officially introduced to the belligerent bard with the battle brow, with those very iconic words.
Kidneys!
Kidneys?
I don't like the colour.
It happens. A good man. The 12th Doctor's era officially kicks off with Deep Breath, as the newly regenerated Doctor and his inherited companion, Clara Oswald, played by Jenna Coleman, crash land in Victorian London, where they are taken in by a few of the Doctor's allies, the Paternoster Gang, Jenny, Strax, and Madame Vastra. A lizard lady, a cute girl, and a potato man who solve mysteries together. And if that sounds awesome, that's because it is. Now, quick sidebar about Clara. As I said, she is an inherited companion, meaning that she started traveling with the Doctor during Matt Smith's era, because, you guessed it, she had a crush on the Doctor.
I'm an English teacher from the planet Earth, and I've run off with a man from space because I really fancy.
If that sounds like an overused plot device, that's because it is. However, the moment the Doctor changed from Matt Smith to Peter Capaldi, so did her feelings for the Time Lord, which brilliantly referenced the superficiality and narrow-mindedness of alleged fans.
You thought he was young?
He looked young.
He looked like your dashing young gentleman friend. Your lover, even.
These are the same nincompoops who complained about Matt Smith being too young, and Peter Capaldi being too old, and Jodie Whittaker being too female, and Ncuti Gatwa being too black. The moment that you start trying to define the Doctor is the moment that you have failed to understand Doctor Who. Now, as far as why the Doctor went from looking like a young man to a mature gentleman, my personal theory is that after the Time War, the Doctor was ashamed of who he had become during his time as an old grim soldier. So once the war ended, he just wanted to get as far away from that persona as possible. So he became the young dashing hero and held on to that persona through his next 2 regenerations until the events of the 50th anniversary special, where he goes back to the Time War and finds a way to save his people without committing genocide, which clears his conscience and helps him accept and forgive himself.
But for now, for this moment, I am the Doctor again.
So he would once again be okay with being older, more distinguished, and crankier.
Shut up, just shut up, shut up, shut up, shut it up.
By the end of Deep Breath, Clara accepts the grumpy Scotsman as the Doctor, but their dynamic changes. With Matt Smith, they were like a couple of giddy friends skipping along and having fun. With this new incarnation, Clara becomes more of the Doctor's babysitter, a job she's overqualified for.
You're a nanny, isn't that a bit, well, Victorian?
As this version of the Doctor shows a lot less restraint than his previous incarnations, so Clara is always there to reel him in.
This is Clara, not my assistant. She's some other word.
I'm his carer.
Yeah, my carer. She cares, so I don't have to.
Which begs the question, is the Doctor a good man? Yes, he has saved the universe many times, but that doesn't automatically make him a good person. And like the Doctor, the answer is complex and simple at the same time. Good is a work in progress. Good is not something that you are. Good is something that you do.
I am an idiot with a box and a screwdriver. Just passing through, helping out, learning.
I have to say that the 12th Doctor's TARDIS interior is my all-time favorite. Yes, it might be Matt Smith's second TARDIS interior, but they added the antique furniture to the catwalk surrounding the control console, which is the perfect finishing touch, as the TARDIS isn't just a vehicle, it's also the Doctor's home, so it should look lived in.
Can I use the toilet?
It's down there. First right, second left, past the macaroon dispenser.
Thanks.
Episode-wise, during the first season of the 12th Doctor's era, we get a few bangers right out of the gate, starting with the Fantastic Voyage episode, Into the Dalek, which sees the Doctor, Clara, and a bunch of soldiers get shrunken down and inserted into the body of a Dalek, in order to repair it and gain vital tactical information. This was a brilliant exploration of one of the Doctor's greatest enemies, that taught us just as much about our beloved hero.
I am not a good Dalek. You are a good Dalek.
A personal favorite of mine is Robot of Sherwood, where the Doctor meets Robin Hood, who should be a fictional character but somehow isn't. This one in particular is very special to me as it is the first episode where I started seeing Peter Capaldi as the Doctor. Don't misunderstand me, Peter was always great in the role, but let's not kid ourselves. It is very jarring to have a new actor take over playing a character that you like from one season to the other. So there's always a period of adjustment, and for me, Robot of Sherwood was the episode where I stopped seeing Peter as the new actor who was playing the Doctor and started seeing him as just the Doctor.
That a man born into wealth and privilege should find the plight of the oppressed and weak too much to bear.
Enough.
Until one night he is moved to steal a TARDIS.
I also have to highlight the first Doctor Light episode of the Capaldi era, Flatline. Now, what is a Doctor Light episode? It is an episode in which the Doctor's involvement is very minimal. Traditionally, this is done so they can double bank episodes and shoot 2 episodes in 1 week. In the case of Flatline, the Doctor gets trapped in the TARDIS as its external dimensions are getting smaller. So it's up to Clara to figure out who or what is causing this and save the Doctor before the TARDIS goes subatomic.
Rule number 1 of being the Doctor, use your enemy's power against them.
And now, let's talk about the arc for the 12th Doctor's first season. as there is a mysterious nemesis called Missy, played by the lovely and talented Michelle Gomez, who has been subtly manipulating our heroes long before this era started.
Where did you get this number?
The shop wrote it down.
You were given the number of a computer helpline, and you ended up phoning the TARDIS. Who gave you that number?
The woman in the shop.
Computer helpline, love. That's the one. Best helpline in the universe.
And not only does she keep putting deadly obstacles in the Doctor and Clara's path, but she keeps collecting all of the casualties and collateral damage from the Doctor's adventures, and remains unnoticed by our heroes until Clara's boyfriend, Danny Pink, becomes one of those unfortunate casualties. So after a very dramatic confrontation between Clara and the Doctor, our hero agrees to take his companion to wherever in the universe Danny's soul went, only to find themselves in a corporation ran by Missy, who is turning the corpse of everyone that has ever existed into Cybermen, using a substance called dark water. And that is not even the biggest twist.
Well, couldn't very well keep calling myself the Master. Now could I?
I have been watching Doctor Who since I was 7 years old. The Master is my favorite villain. And not only do I consider this to be the single greatest twist in the very long history of the series, but Michelle Gomez very quickly became my favorite incarnation of the character. And I say that without intending any disrespect to any of the previous and future actors who play the character. Michelle Gomez just perfectly walks the line between wicked, weird, and whimsical. She can go from absolutely ridiculous to completely terrifying in the span of a sentence. And it is amazing.
Supposed to believe that you've turned good.
No, I've not turned good.
And thus, we arrive at the first special of the Capaldi era, Last Christmas, which sees the Doctor team up with Santa Claus, played by Nick Frost, to fight off facehuggers on a futuristic science station. Many have debated whether this premise is silly or cool. I say it's both. Also, Dan Starkey, who plays Strax, plays one of Santa's elves in this one, and that is pretty awesome.
As if your lives depended on it. Please! Ho, ho, ho. Believe in Santa.
The Hybrid. For the 12th Doctor's second season, the show embraced the serialized format of the classic series, as almost every episode of this season is a two-parter, with an epic cliffhanger in the middle, all of which is set in motion when the Doctor receives his confession dial from the Time Lords, who were supposed to be trapped in a pocket dimension. But not only are the Doctor's power-mad people back, but they are implying that the Doctor is headed towards his last days, and should deliver his last will and testament. So the Doctor does what the Doctor does best. He runs. He grabs Clara and he runs through all of time and space to have as many adventures as possible before his time ends. The Doctor and Clara go through some significant changes during this time. This is when the 12th Doctor adopts his aging rock star persona, which is both symbolic to the Doctor going on what he believes to be his last tour, and a reference to the fact that Peter Capaldi was actually in a rock band when he was younger. Also, he stops carrying the sonic screwdriver and replaces it with sonic shades, which were idiotically divisive within the fanbase. Personally, I like that the Doctor wears shades now. Shades are cool. We are also provided with a canonical reason for the Doctor subconsciously regenerating into Peter Capaldi's previous Doctor Who character, Caecilius, which was apparently to remind himself that even when the situation seems hopeless, to still try and save at least one person.
To remind me to hold me to the mark. I'm the Doctor, and I save people.
As far as Clara's concerned, losing Danny completely changed her. She went from being the sensible one to being the relentlessly reckless one, taking one unnecessary risk after the other, because now she has no one to come home to, and has lost all sense of self-preservation. So her dynamic with the Doctor changes again, and the two basically trade roles. Clara becomes the wild adventurer, and the Doctor becomes the vigilant caretaker. Her erratic behavior would escalate throughout the season, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Before we talk about the destination, let's talk about the journey with a few notable episodes. The season takes off with a bang with the Magician's Apprentice and the Witch's Familiar, which sees the Doctor go to save a boy from a minefield, only to make a startling discovery.
Davros, My name is Davros.
That's right. That little boy will one day grow up and become the creator of the Doctor's greatest enemies, the Daleks. And thus, this episode takes on the classic time travel moral dilemma.
If someone who knew the future pointed out a child to you and told you that that child would grow up totally evil, could you then kill that child? I get the point.
This season also has the series' first POV episode, or found footage episode, Sleep No More, which is a good old-fashioned horror story that will take residence in your brain rent-free.
There's nothing left of Rasmussen anymore.
I would be hard-pressed if I didn't at least briefly mention the Zygon Invasion and the Zygon Inversion, where Peter Capaldi delivers one of the best performances of his career.
This is not a war. I fought in a bigger war than you will ever know. I did worse things than you could ever imagine. And when I close my eyes...
Midway through the season, we received the sad news that this would be Jenna Coleman's last as the Doctor's companion, which brings us to the inevitable result of Clara's recklessness. Face the Raven, where in a misguided attempt to save a friend who had been sentenced to death, Clara takes his place on the chopping block, believing that the Doctor will find a way to save her. Unfortunately, that is not the case, and Clara is killed by a magic ghost bird who flies into her boobs and pushes the soul out of her body through her mouth in gaseous form. And that's not out of context. That's exactly what happens. Look, sometimes the show is weird. With Clara gone, the Doctor accepts his fate and enters his confession dive, only to discover that it is actually a trap by the Time Lords to get the Doctor to confess everything he knows about the hybrid. What the heck is the hybrid? The hybrid is a legend that the Time Lords are terrified of, which says that at one point there will be a hybrid born of the union of two warrior races that will unravel the web of time, but that in itself is just a MacGuffin for this season. What matters here is that we have finally arrived at what many consider to be the best episode of the Capaldi era, and some even say it's the best episode of the entire franchise. Heaven Sent. Like I said, the Doctor is in an impossible trap that presents him with one of two options: confess or die. But the thing is that he is the Doctor, and he specializes in the impossible. So he creates a third option. And it's so crazy and brilliant and awesome that I dare not spoil it here. If you haven't seen it, you're just gonna have to check it out for yourself. Thus, we arrive at the season finale, Hell Bent, which sees the Doctor escape the trap and confront the Time Lords, as part of an effort to violate the laws of time and save Clara, which he sort of does by freezing that last second of her life, allowing her to live an entire lifespan in just that 1 second. And that's all right then. So we bid farewell to Clara Oswald, the longest running companion of the revived series, as the 12th Doctor returns to his TARDIS and his magician's clothes and finally gets his own sonic screwdriver, as opposed to using Matt Smith's or the sonic shades that made half the fandom lose their ever-loving minds. There was a 1-year delay in between seasons 9 and 10 because Doctor Who showrunner Stephen Moffat was also producing Sherlock. The good news is that in between those 2 seasons, we got 2 specials. Let's talk about the first one, The Husbands of River Song. At last we come full circle and we see River Song's final stop before she meets the Doctor for the last time in the library.
Hello, sweetie.
And boy, did this not disappoint.
Hello, sweetie.
One last ridiculous, beautiful, heart-wrenching adventure between the Doctor and his greatest love. Stephen Moffat crafted a complex love story told completely out of order, across 7 years, and paid it off beautifully, from the forests of the Vashta Narada to the Singing Towers. It was wonderful and painful at the same time, and we knew for sure that this was the end, because we were all out of spoilers.
Assuming tonight is all we have left, how long is a night on Beryllium?
24 years.
Also, Matt Lucas is in this special, and he ends up being a major part of the show throughout the rest of the 12th Doctor's era. Very much like Catherine Tate, Matt Lucas was only supposed to have a guest appearance in one of the specials, but he went over with the cast and crew so well that they kept him around longer, eventually becoming a fully fledged companion. As far as his dynamic with the Doctor, he very much becomes his supervisor or his caretaker during one of the most important tasks the Doctor has ever undertaken. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Before we get to that, let's talk about the second special that took place between seasons 9 and 10. The return of Dr. Mysterio. Fun fact, Doctor Misterio is what Doctor Who is called in Spanish, and it is what I called the show throughout most of my childhood. Considered to be the weakest of the Capaldi specials, we see the Doctor accidentally give a little boy superpowers, and then he grows up to be an analog of Superman, complete with a Lois Lane who's in love with his alter ego but completely oblivious to him. Yes, this might be the least loved 12th Doctor special, but I have a soft spot for it, as I've always wanted a crossover between Doctor Who and Superman. You know, the American alien superhero teaming up with the British alien superhero? It would be awesome. Sadly, LEGO Dimensions is probably the closest we're ever going to get. So personally, I'm happy to settle for this special. The Doctor Falls. For Peter Capaldi's third and final season as the Doctor, the show went through one major significant change.
It's time to take the stabilizers off your bike.
Because for Peter Capaldi's first 2 seasons, there were always familiar elements from Matt Smith's era to appease those nostalgic fans. But with Clara gone, the Doctor was now without the last of these familiar components. The 12th Doctor had now established his own unique character, lore, adversaries, sonic screwdriver, and for the first time ever, his own unique companion, Bill Potts, played by Pearl Mackie. Oh, and Matt Lucas is still there as Nardole, being hilarious and strangely sexy.
I'll kill you first. It's her over your neck pinch.
For the 12th Doctor's final story arc, he decides to do something he's been meaning to do for a long time. Take responsibility for the Master's crimes. This has been suggested twice before, in the made-for-TV movie in 1996 and in the season 3 finale in 2007. But in this season, the Doctor finally executes said plan, by initially incarcerating the Master in an inescapable vault, and then trying to reform her. However, in order to keep a constant vigil on his arch-nemesis, he has to stay in the same place. So the Doctor takes residence as a professor at a university, where Bill works at the cafeteria and eventually becomes a student. The usual events transpire. Deadly alien shenanigans, brave beautiful girl gets involved, the Doctor saves the day, she agrees to travel with him, and back to business. As adventurers, their dynamic remains the same, very much as professor and student.
Yeah, but you come to my lectures.
No, I don't. Well, I never do that.
I've seen you.
Love your lectures. They're totally awesome.
The season effortlessly weaves back and forth between your standard standalone adventure and the story arc with the Master's reform, leading to the heartbreaking finale, The Doctor Falls. All the while trying to save a space station trapped near a time anomaly, Bill is horrifically injured and gets taken for medical care at the opposite end of the station from where the Doctor is located, where time passes much faster, so she endures crude medical treatments and rehabilitation for years, while she waits for the Doctor to slowly make his way to the other end of the space station, only for him to discover the horrible, horrible truth that Bill never received medical care, but instead, she was turned into a Cyberman. This is the most cruel and horrible fate of any of the Doctor's companions, and considering what show I'm talking about, that is saying something. The good news is that her consciousness is saved by the weird water lady from the pilot. And that's alright then! On the flip side of that, we get the franchise's first ever multi-master episode, as Michelle Gomez's Master meets John Sims' version. And that, admittedly, is pretty damn awesome.
By the way, is it wrong that
Yes.
Oh, here's a fun fact. The original Cybermen, or the Mondasian Cybermen, are Peter Capaldi's favorite Doctor Who monster, so it couldn't have been more appropriate that his final battle was with them. The Doctor tries to set things right after the incident with Bill and the two Masters, and once again pays the ultimate price. Here we get yet another instance in the series where the Doctor stubbornly holds back his next regeneration, which leads to the 12th Doctor's final special, Twice Upon a Time. All the while trying to hold back his regeneration, the Doctor accidentally runs into the First Doctor, played by the amazing David Bradley, who's doing the exact same thing, holding back his first regeneration during his first battle with the very Cybermen who mortally injured the 12th Doctor. What ensues is a touching tale of accepting mortality, quelling your fear of the future, and embracing change. And thus, the 12th Doctor bids his first incarnation farewell, embraces his companions one last time, and ushers the next Doctor into the universe.
Doctor, I let you go.
And so the 12th Doctor's time ended. The old rocker hung up his guitar after being 12 Time Lords, because it was time to let go of the Time Lord and make way for a Time Lady.
Oh, brilliant.
But that is another story. It's time, like the Doctor, for us to embrace our own ending. Final verdict. The most common assessment of the 12th Doctor's era is that it is good, but just not as good as the 11th Doctor's era, which is an unfair comparison. The 11th Doctor's era was lightning in a bottle. All the right ingredients miraculously came together to create something to appeal to a mass global audience that Doctor Who had never been able to reach before. And quite frankly, it is insane to think that anyone could ever recreate that, or even try. Which is what I love the most about the 12th Doctor's era. While there are some trace elements of what came before, it was in no way a remake. They instead embraced the new and traversed unexplored territory. The 12th Doctor had his own style, his own flavor, his own way of doing things. And that is a good thing. After all, that's what Doctor Who is all about. Change, renewal, and regeneration. The universe needed a grumpy magician, rock star, time-traveling adventurer, and Peter Capaldi delivered in every aspect. So much so that in the end, it was easy to understand why he hesitated to regenerate, because it was hard to let him go.
This plane is protected. I am the Doctor.
But while this song has ended, the story never ends. Until next time, I'm Erod, and I'm the Blockbuster Buster.